Hello, welcome to L.I.N.K Live. I'm Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive, and I'm here with my lovely editors, Brielle and Mackenna. You want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Brielle, Associate Editor.
And I'm Mackenna, the Web Editor.
And today we are talking about the cold chain. And before we dive into that, I just want to remind all of our viewers that our Women in Supply Chain Award on Supply and Demand Chain Executive nominations close this Friday. So make sure you nominate that special female executive in your company. Also, registration for SCN Summit on July 28th is now open, and the topic is business, how to navigate business amid the coronavirus. Some great topics, great speakers, awesome stuff. So make sure you register online, foodlogistics.com and sdcexec.com. One registration gets you all 4 sessions. So just had to plug that. Yay, welcome to L.I.N.K Live. So today we're talking about cold chain. Before we dive in and I pass it off to you ladies who have some great insight to provide, I wanted to say on Food Logistics website, there is a study from Global Cold Chain Association where they talked about the most frequently selected challenge in their survey was supply chain disruptions, which reminds me, our SCN Summit registration on demand for on supply chain threats is now online. Okay. And the top response for this survey was that the top response to COVID-19 was for companies to better protect their workforce, which I thought was just, I mean, I'm glad that that's the case, but it just was kind of crazy to me that, you know, that was the top. You know, usually it's the people are kind of like at the bottom, you know, we want to save money and redo our processes. So I just thought that was kind of cool. So diving in, when we talk about trends and technologies, Brielle, I know you have some things you wanted to add to the conversation of cold chain. So I'll let you kind of start.
I mean, there's endless things that you can talk about with the cold chain. I think like any other sector, technology is really important. And of course, visibility. I feel like I talk about visibility all the time, but that's a huge thing in the cold chain, especially because we're dealing with perishables. So proof of delivery apps are becoming really important. You can read all about that in my latest software story for food logistics. I kind of dive into all the new apps that are going on in the cold chain. And yeah, proof of delivery is a big deal because it takes out a lot of the extra work that goes involved with all the paperwork. So the industry is definitely moving towards a less paperwork heavy and more towards technology because it just makes things easier. It saves paper, it saves, you know, whole tons of time. And then another thing is robotics, obviously, is becoming important throughout the whole supply chain in general, but it kind of takes a different level in the cold chain because you're, like I said, you're dealing with perishables. I know there's some warehouses that, you know, people can't even walk into because they are able to lower the oxygen level to keep food from you know, ripening too fast. It's crazy. And then, so robotics have to handle all of that stuff. So there's a lot of really interesting technology that comes along with the cold chain, but then there's also, you know, not everyone is adopting to technology. So it's kind of goes with the whole supply chain in that sense, where it's like some people are still, a lot of people are still doing it the old fashioned way. Yeah. And I know, Mackenna, I think what's really interesting is all the temperature control stuff. I mean, that's a huge deal in, like I said, with perishables. And you recently covered all the temperature control technology, right?
Yes, so in the July issue of Food Logistics, which will be out later this month. I don't know when, Marina, but
later this month.
But it'll be out later this month. And in the article, I talked about how temperature monitoring systems were already becoming like a big deal because it helps track and trace the food supply chain. But ever since COVID hit, it has grown significantly because so when Amazon first bought Whole Foods back in 2017, the grocery industry didn't really have to worry about the Amazon effect and having to implement robotics. So do 2-day delivery or same-day delivery for groceries, or even deliver groceries for the matter. And so when Amazon made that purchase, it like disrupted the entire industry, and people started to think about what they could do. And so it meant like some stores vamped their online presence, others started doing micro fulfillment centers and having dark stores just so that they were able to deliver the food to the customers and be closer to the customers. But no matter what, you're going to need those temperature monitoring systems, because if something goes wrong in the delivery process, all the food's going to go bad, somebody's going to get sick, and you need to be able to monitor that the entire time. The other week we talked about how cool it would be if we could go and see which hand made the mistake in the supply chain. And that is essentially what the temperature monitoring system does for this, because it can pinpoint where in the chain it loses the control.
Yeah, in a recent interview I did with GS1 for our regular podcast series, we discussed visibility and how the level it has gotten in the cold chain is really crazy. And it's just going to keep getting more advanced. And where that really comes into play is when there's any kind of outbreak or something that happens, you can pinpoint exactly the exact shipment, the exact time, the exact warehouse. So you don't have to throw out the entire supply. And so it is really going to help with food waste. And it's really going to help keep people safe. So yeah, I mean, I think technology in the cold chain, the more the better.
Mm-hmm. That's something interesting with the temperature monitoring systems too, that eventually they'll be in stores and people will get up, yes, this is good to buy, or maybe not, or like you're reaching the expiration date, and then it would just say no on it. And I think that would be really helpful for some people, because they're already doing like the ugly produce and trying to push that onto people. So if you can do that, I think people will be more willing to buy stuff as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology happening to help save food waste. And I think that's really important, because it's definitely a problem, especially in the US.
Yeah, and then because of the pandemic, there's so many studies currently on food logistics that say that the demand for cold warehouses is just skyrocketing. And all when Brexit happened, or when people were preparing for Brexit, all the countries were just stockpiling goods overseas because they didn't know what was going to happen. And now it's happening here, but only because of the pandemic. And so they want these cold storage warehouses to be near the grocery stores. They want to be closer to customers, but there's a limited space now.
Mm-hmm. Right. And something that I learned from the 3PL article I put together for the July issue, it was on 3PLs, 4PLs, and 5PLs, and like what the difference is. And they were talking about, all of them that had this common synergy. Like the point is to remove the middleman, to remove that link that they have to go through to get to the end point, because that lowers the traceability. It increases the traceability efforts, but it lowers the amount of hands and people and processes that are actually involved with a certain product, whether it be, medicine or food or whatever the case is. And I just think that's interesting, because that's really completely opposite of how this was like 10 years ago. Everybody wanted that middleman, because they're like, oh, we need that person to kind of help validate things. And so it's like really interesting to see how the industry is completely done a 180 in that retrospect.
Right. And it's so pushed. I mean, everything nowadays is pushed by consumers, because now, the whole retail industry and every sector is now dominated by consumer demand instead of the other way around, which I can talk till I'm blue in the face about how that's changed because of digital. But so now people, with the growth of like organic produce and healthy foods, people want to know where their foods come from. They want to know that it was harvested safely. They want to know that, they want to get to know the people who have made their food or who've, grown their food. I know I buy cage-free eggs, but the categorization of these products can be iffy. I mean, certain things mean certain things. So don't mean exactly what you think it means. So like cage-free can be more a little bit not exactly how you want it. So I want to know where my eggs come from. I want to see the farm. I want to see the chickens, and that the one of the egg companies that I buy from, they give you like a little packet inside that tells you, you know, what whose chicken it was and how they live, and you can go online and read all about it. And I think that's really important today. And people really want to know, they want to have that personal connection. And the closer you are to your products, the better. And like the local food movement has become huge.
Yes.
You know, I feel the same way. I'm excited to go to my local farmer's market and get some stuff. It's all about the experience as well, you know?
Well, and I think that pushes the onus a little bit more on the farmers and growers, which is not something that's ever been the case. You know, they've always been, we made our product, we shipped it out, you know, we grew it, we did our job. And now there's a lot more intricacies, and, you know, they have to, you know, implement more software and technology so that they can be able to firmly say, okay, this is exactly the day we picked it, or, you know, whatever the case is, this is the day we packed it, this is the day we shipped it. And provide that traceability information, because that's where it starts. And, you know, I think that has kind of transformed the way farmers and growers do their jobs compared to, you know, even 10 years ago. So, and we don't talk about agricultural side of it as much as we probably should. And, you know, now there's all these vertical farms and all these hydroponic farming units, and it's kind of really transformed the way product is grown, in addition to the way that we view how it's been grown. So I just think that that's an interesting point too.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's like the bullwhip effect, you know?
Yes.
It was years ago, you know, when my grandparents and even when my parents were younger, they got their food locally. It wasn't even a choice. It's just how it was. Right. But as time's gone on, and, you know, we started outsourcing more and people wanted faster and more, it got so prolific that now consumers are switching the opposite way, and they want that, you know, common ground back. They want that person, you know, that closeness back.
It's like the local milkman, you know, when he would drop off, you know, the milk cartons. You know, even like the local butchers, like, I don't know how it is by you, but we don't have a lot of local butchers by us anymore. Right. We just go to, you know, well, now you can start to order this stuff online. So it's completely different. And I know we did publish an article on that, how a lot of these big box retailers need to start to get to know these purveyors a little bit more, so that they can understand where they're getting product from, especially when they're selling it in the case, not packaged. So they can provide that information to, you know, the customer when they ask, because there's no packaging for it. It's just, you know, a piece of salmon or whatever it is, and it's just there. Well, you don't know where it came from. Yeah. So I just think that's interesting too. And I know it's all related to cold chain, but what was that?
Well, there's a lot of fraud that can happen too.
Yes.
With the seafood industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why?
And I know they're doing some really good stuff with implementing traceability and stuff, but I mean, seafood fraud, that's been going on for quite some time. And I think it's getting better, but it still exists, which is, you know, a shame. And then, you know, we talked about, you know, regulatory compliance. I know, Brielle, you're working on an article on regulatory compliance in August for 3PLs, but you know, that does obviously interchange with cold chain. Now that there's, you know, a pandemic, you know, there's a lot more different kind of compliance rules in place. Some of them are not being enforced, and others are being overly enforced just because of the pandemic. What kind of things are you, just to kind of give us a little snapshot? I don't mean that. Snapshot. What did I say last week that I totally screwed up? I said
Snapchat instead of screenshot, and now I don't screenshot instead of snapshot.
You know what I mean.
You get the stuff from our stuff. I know what you mean.
What kind of things are you seeing?
I think, well, you're well aware that it's been a little difficult this time around to get some people to talk about it because one, everyone's busy. Two, the FDA kind of changed all of their rules. So people are kind of scared to speak on it because they don't really know what's going on. And the FDA, they stopped doing on-site checks. So they stopped a lot of regulations during COVID-19 to keep people safe. So it's a weird time, but the country's opening up again for now. I guess some parts are closing down. So it's really, it's a weird time for compliance. You know, I know there's a lot of technologies that people use trying to, you know, keep their products safe. Obviously, you know, safety is the most important thing. So, you know, the FDA isn't just saying like, do whatever you want. And people obviously really care. You know, even if they didn't care about the safety of people, brands still care about their image. So it's super important to make sure that everything's safe. So there's some technologies in place that can help people, you know, like temperature control monitoring and things like that. But yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a super weird time.
Yeah.
What would prompt them to get checked out, like a company checked out? Because I just remember, do you remember in 2018 when all those recalls were happening, especially Smacks?
The lettuce, yeah.
And when they released the report of what that factory looked like, it still like haunts me.
Yeah.
This day. And so are they just waiting until it gets to that point? Or
well, so I think everything right now, everyone's focusing on the Food Safety Monitorization Act, which is focused on that to prevent foodborne illnesses instead of, you know, having to react. So there's definitely stuff in place where they're trying to be proactive instead. But I'm not exactly sure how like it works. But yeah, they have all of these situations in place trying to make sure that, you know, they stop it before it gets out instead of reacting. So after that happened, there was a big switch to kind of make sure that instead of reacting, we're being proactive about it. So I think it's a combination of the FDA, it's a combination of the companies themselves, the plants themselves. Everyone's trying to work together to make sure this doesn't happen. Obviously, nobody wants this to happen, but it did take a little like step back and look at what we're doing to make sure, you know, this doesn't happen again. But something's falling through the cracks, I guess.
If there's any compliance viewers out there that have some input, please contact Brielle. And that can be, you know, even lawyers too. I'm sure that they have some things to say if there's any food, you know, cold chain lawyers who specialize in cold chain, cold food and beverage. They, you know, let us know because it's a touchy subject, but it's a subject that affects everybody and needs to be addressed, whether FDA is in the facilities or not. So yeah, so I don't know, I just think it's cool. And then obviously all the automation and robotics that go into, you know, how a cold chain operates today versus even how it did 10 years ago. I mean,
there's a lot of technology that goes into the cold chain and compliance in general. So so they're using the stuff that they're using to help their operations is also what they're using for compliance. So it goes hand. So like all the sensors, like the RFID sensors that go on the pallets and stuff like that, that can also be used to help compliance.
Interesting.
You know, because you're tracking everything, you're seeing how everything's handled. You know, these sensors are so detailed, and when you combine that with machine learning and analytics and AI, it really can make a difference. It can give you such a detailed description of how your operation's running, what you can do to better your operation, and what the future can look like.
Pretty cool. So any to our viewers, make sure you keep an eye on our articles, foodlogistics.com and sdcexec.com. Also go on sdcexec.com and nominate that female leader for our Women in Supply Chain Award. That nominations close Friday. Also register for SCN Summit, July 28th. Navigating business amid the coronavirus. One registration gets you all 4 sessions. What else am I missing?
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast link on Tuesdays on the Google and Apple podcast apps.
Yes.
And Thursday.
And Thursday.
And
now,
Thursday is
L.I.N.K.
Educate. That's our new,
That's right.
very good. In honor of SDC's 20-year anniversary, we launched L.I.N.K Educate. And Brielle and Mackenna did a great job of interviewing some young professionals and professors and veterans in the industry to just find out, what the professional development situation looks like with today's supply chain, training and hiring and, making, having what interests people to major in it and how professors are teaching it, et cetera. So it's pretty cool. So that's every Thursday as well. And make sure you tune in to L.I.N.K Live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central. Next week, we talk about air cargo, and we do have a guest, and you'll just have to go online to find it because I don't have the piece of paper with me. But that's how organized I am today. It's with Unisys, I know that. So please, that'll be a good conversation because air cargo, we don't talk about that much, but it is a form of transportation that helps get product. It must be storming by Mackenna. Either somebody's climbing on her wall. Spider-Man.
I didn't even hear
The
it.
big thunderclap.
I didn't hear it. I saw her jump. At least one of us
wow.
jumps at every Facebook Live.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's either a dog or a door opening.
It's like not raining though, so that's what I don't understand. And the sun's out, so.
Well,
Ooh.
Mackenna's in Wisconsin. I'm outside of Chicago, and Brielle is in New Jersey, and we all are about to get some kind of a thunderstorm at some point in today. So that's pretty cool because all 3 of us usually have very different weather. So
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everybody for listening and for viewing and for following and liking and subscribing and just being a part of our food logistics and supply and demand chain family. This is L.I.N.K Live. We'll see you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central. Bye.